Hello, welcome back to 1874. You've had two pieces of post-Arsenal content already, but this is probably the one that the purists have been waiting for, as myself, Dan Bardell, and the Athletic's Jacob Tanswell get inside Aston Villa's 2-1 win against Arsenal. The inside shows have stereotypically been coming out on a Monday, but Villa obviously have played a lot of Sunday games. This was a Saturday lunchtime kickoff, so of course this is coming out on a Sunday. That makes complete sense. I don't know why I felt the need again to tell people that, but I have. I've gone there and I've done it. And this show is sponsored by NordVPN. If you head to nordvpn.com/1874, you will get a huge discount. You'll get 4 months for free, and you'll also be guaranteed your money back if you're not satisfied after 30 days, because they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. It'll help you with threat protection. It'll keep you safe online, and it will also enable you to get some extra football in your life. If you didn't manage to watch the Villa game today for whatever reason, you could have done if you'd have used NordVPN and paired it up with various streaming platforms. So yeah, head to nordvpn.com/1874 if you want to find out a little bit more. Tanswell, I feel like we come on and do these shows at the moment, and every time I kind of start with the same thing. This can't keep happening. They can't keep winning. But Jacob, they can. Winning in different ways. The way they won on Wednesday, I don't think me and you have done a show since then. That was absolutely incredible. And you think, that can't be topped. And then Saturday comes against Arsenal, top of the league. It turns out it can be topped. Just it was a great game. What a day. What an ending to a game. I don't think I've ever seen an ending like that to a game, and I've been going to Villa Park for a long, long time. It was just absolutely out of this world, Jacob.
Yeah, these last 4 days can only be replicated or similar to the Arsenal and City wins in the 2023-24 season, really, in terms of how impressive they were. You know, I've been pulled up by fans about my reticence regarding XG and underlying metric and saying that was not sustainable. But what you've seen from the last 2 games is something completely different. I think Villa were winning, and we've said it before, Villa were winning, and they still had levels to go. And now you've seen those levels and see where they can go. The Brighton game, like we say, they showed a different side to them. Defensively, they were a little bit more vulnerable than usually. What they did was they showed a brilliant attacking threat, which allowed them to get the win. And then this game, I think, was extraordinary. Villa have reached levels that you haven't seen in probably a generation under Emery in certain games. PSG second half, Man City, that 1-0. I think this one rivals it really because of how competitive Villa were, how organised they were, how exceptional they were. And I'll keep going back to it because it's so important. And I feel like a broken record. This team on paper and in theory is weaker than last year. You talk about all the challenges of the summer. You talk about PSR. You talk about the financial sanction. You talk about every single player feeling that potentially their time at Villa was up in the summer at one point or another. How low the mood was. How stagnant staff felt at the time, how they felt that this was probably, enough references in the piece, this was Emery's era going down the hill rather than climbing new heights. And what they've done is they've completely battered away those suggestions. And what Emery's done, especially in these last 2 games, has just shown that pound for pound, he's the best manager in the Premier League in terms of the resources he's got, what he can do with that, how he can maximise. Villa are second in the league with a squad that's weaker than last season.
Now, I hate to tell you, we are third now. I know I made that mistake earlier.
Third in the league, potentially 3 points off Arsenal. And what they've done is astonishing, really. Full credit to all involved.
Yeah, someone interestingly, actually, in the post-match show that I did on my own when I got home from the game, pulled up that me and you keep saying that the squad is weaker. It's not as strong as it was last season, but they said in there that we're not taking into account the fact that there's actually been an improvement in quite a number of players who are at the club who've gone to a different level this season. And it referenced Cash, referenced Emery, which I think is a good point. But the facts remain. You know, Villa have played against a team today, Arsenal, top of the league, one of the best teams in Europe, if not the best team in Europe on current form and what they're doing in the Champions League and what they've been doing in the Premier League. Arsenal spent a fortune improving in the summer and have improved and have got a brilliant squad, and now they'll still obviously be the favourites for the league, in my opinion. They were like at the top end of winning the transfer window. Villa probably lost the transfer window, in all honesty, out of every club in the Premier League. Their net spend was less than everyone else's. It was a horrible, horrible transfer window. Yet on the day at Villa Park, coming into that last 10, 15 minutes, Villa are the ones that are in the ascendancy and trying to win the game. Villa have got Lindelof playing in the back four at this point. Someone who was bought in on the last day of the transfer window in an absolute panic and haze. I'm sure Lamar Burgard's had to go from midfield to right back. Buendia's probably only come on the pitch because we've had 2 injuries in the back line. Like, to have 2 defenders go off at the same time at the end of the game, you kind of sit there and think, I think I'll be quite happy with a point here. But Emery wasn't on the sideline. He was telling them to go, go, go. He was so animated on the touchline today. For them to go on and win that game the way that they did against that level of opposition is just testament to Unai Emery and this bunch of players.
Yeah, definitely. And I will repeat, the squad this week, I know I take into account they've improved, but in terms of the players and the positions that they're missing, the squad's weaker. They haven't got the pace or alternative of Rashford. They haven't got the extra defender in Disasi. Okay, you can argue how well he was, but he gave you another body in defence. You haven't got a right winger. So that's where I mentioned that the squad is weaker, because they have fewer options, and that's what makes this season and the transformation so incredible. Not only in having to come back from the first 6 games where they're winless, but how they've managed to rejuvenate not only a stagnant squad, but get them to levels in certain players, like you've echoed, Matty Cash, to performances that you've not seen before, elevated them. And you probably felt in the summer, a lot of these players have probably hit their ceiling. Surely there was no more juice left to squeeze in some of them, but they've managed to do it. And Matty Cash is one of them. And that shows that if you can keep improving those players that have been there for a long time, you can just find a way of keeping going. And I asked Emery afterwards, after the game, I said, when did you feel that you could really win that game? And he said, we felt it. We said we had to obviously calm down after the equaliser, and that was a point that I think has been missed. That 10 minutes after the equaliser, Arsenal fans were up. The momentum was in danger of swinging violently. Villa kept the ball the best they had probably all game, slowed the tempo down. Arsenal retreated, ceded territory, and Villa could build their way back into it, and then they slowly regathered their strength. And there's a point in stoppage time, I believe, where Martinez got the ball, and I reckon 15, 16 goalkeepers would probably just die on it. Emery barks, he runs out, launches a quick throw, and I thought, okay, this means Villa are trying to win it. They had big chance before with Marlon to win the game. But I felt like Arsenal were tiring in that last 10 minutes. I tweeted out the spaces in midfield. I've never seen an Arsenal midfield who was so physically imposing and dominant, looked so ragged and tired. Of course, they had games in midweek, but they had Brentford. They didn't have Brighton away. They had Brentford at home, and they had more rotation, bigger squad depth. But Tielemans was getting on the ball. Rodgers, I think, was brilliant. He was the main point of attack, on the left, switched to the right, second half, main point of contact there. And I thought, okay, the game could be there for a really brave and courageous team and a really quality team. And Villa have done that. And this is a Villa team, again, like I keep saying, they're not young. They're not obviously not that old, but they're not. You don't look at them and think, okay, they can outlast this Arsenal beast, really. But they've got this mentality, especially at Villa Park, where they will out hustle, out strategize. That's a word. Any team really that comes to them. It doesn't matter if you're PSG, Arsenal, Wolves. They'll find a way to win, and you saw that in that last minute. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I was watching that last kind of 10 minutes, thinking some warriors out there like Kamara. He's got to be the best 6 in the Prem at the moment for me. He absolutely has to be. He goes under the radar so much outside of Villa circles. Tillerman's missed 10 games in a row earlier on in the season, and he's going 90 plus minutes and still running the game in midfield. I thought credit to the coaching staff and credit to Emery that they actually took him out on Wednesday and used him as a substitute, because he was still going at the end of that game and still so important, threading balls through. What did you make of the setup today? Because actually it was the setup that we discussed. It would be. We said he'd play those 5 midfielders, and he did, and it worked a treat, didn't it? Arsenal had spells. At the start of that second half, Arsenal were really, really good. They made a couple of changes, and they came out and made life really difficult for Villa. But generally, on the balance of play across the entirety of the 90 minutes, I think about how many chances and openings Villa had, even if it was just like a half chance when Watkins looked like he might go through and he got snuffed out, or he shot and the shot got blocked. Villa had a lot of presentable openings. I actually found a balance of play. I think if you look at the XG as well, Villa come out on top. I think we probably deserve to win that game.
Yeah, Villa certainly deserve to win, and I think those of Arsenal persuasion would agree with that.
A few actually have on Twitter, in credit to their fan
Yeah,
base. I've had some nice tweets from Arsenal fans
good,
actually.
good. And we knew it's very predictable that Villa would play that midfield of Onana, McGinn, Tielemans, Kamara, because of how imposing they are, how physically good they are, and you need to, to beat Man City or to beat Arsenal, you need to outwork them, and you need to really plunge into your energy reserves, and they can do that. But also, they're very structured, they're very organized. They never get caught out of position. Emery's always key to avoiding counter attacks. Having an extra midfielder in there is key to breaking it up, and that's why Kamara was just exceptional, because he very few opportunities he did that. They limit space, but also what they do in possession is they've got a lot of energy to get into the box. You saw Tielemans and Onana break in sometimes. There's a few
Even
times.
Kamara recently, I've got to
Yeah,
say, the way he's getting forward has
well,
been
they'll
really
choose.
impressive.
Yeah, they obviously pick who's close to the ball, and then they'll run. And there's times where Watkins or Matson could pull the ball back. But another thing they can do is they've got the power, they've got the technical ability to spot passes from deep. So if you saw how Arsenal lined up, right, they were in a build up. They had the two centre backs, and Zubimendi or Rice would go into the back three, and then their two fullbacks would be so high, like number 10s almost. In Calafiori and Ben White, but that meant the space was down the flanks. So if Villa did turn the ball over, you had to be so good and nimble in your thinking to get the ball out to a Rodgers or to a Watkins or to a Matson. And I thought Villa did that, especially in the first 15 minutes, and that really showed their game plan of how they wanted to break that period where Arsenal gained momentum second half. Dan, was when Villa couldn't really, Arsenal were more aggressive in how they counter pressed, but Villa couldn't really hold the ball up, so they couldn't really break as much. But then gradually they started to, and whenever Villa could break out of that first phase of pressure after regaining the ball, there was opportunities. Watkins in the second half cut in, had that left-footed shot saved. First half as well, shot from close range that Reyes saved. Villa were regularly turning the ball over and really causing an Arsenal team. I know without Gabriel and Saliba, it must be said, who are incredible in defending counters. But an Arsenal team that are chasing towards their own goal, and they're not used to that. So the game plan was spot on from a tactical point of view.
Yeah, look, you're right to call out the two centre backs not being there, and of course Mascara as well, who's the third choice in Saliba's cover. He wasn't there either, but it's still a team of expensively assembled footballers, and this is why they spent the money that they did in the summer, because they wanted to be covered in every position. And even with those injuries, they've put out an incredibly well-rounded and strong squad, a strong team. But Villa were just at it, weren't they? I was so impressed with the way we manoeuvre tight spaces, like just the little intricate passes, and suddenly they manage to make two or three little passes between each other or wriggle out of a situation. Then someone will play a through ball and Rodgers is running into space, Watkins is running into space, or Matson, who I thought was excellent today, is running into space as well. Were just so good to watch again, and I can't think back to the start of the season. I just didn't enjoy watching us for those first 4, 5, 6 games at all. To see us at this level now, so far into Emery's tenure, but still thinking that players can get better. They are getting better. Cash scores again in a big game, just like he did against Manchester City. Suddenly he's allowed to go forward from right back for the first time in a few years, and he's popping up at the back post and scoring like instinctive strikers finishes. What is it that's allowed Matty Cash to suddenly be able to come forward and feel like he might score in every game? In all honesty, I'm gonna have to get him in my fantasy football team, I think.
Right, it's because Villa haven't got a right winger, so Emery's intelligently found ways to compensate for that. And we've said before, and we got a lot of criticism for it. When people were criticizing Cash, and we were saying he's got a remit to fulfill. Now you see that he's given a little bit more license to go forward, and now he's making really telling attacking contributions, hasn't he? So uh, it's such a high level of performance. I can't put into words. There's times, even when you might overthink it or overlook actually as a Villa fan, but in like the 91st, 92nd minute, when teams, like I say, are content to hold on to a point against league leaders, Martinez is passing out to the deputy centre back who's playing on his weaker side, who's a free agent, who Villa didn't really look at until the final days of the window, and they're passing to him under enormous pressure, and they're playing out from the back, and they generate an attack of their own. It takes huge skill, and this just mentality drilled into them. These 3 hours of analysis before the game, in this situation, you have to do is stick to the plan, stick to this will work. And the more it works, the more confidence and everything flows off it. This Villa team are amazing. And I think one thing that is important to say is the rotation in selection in the last 4 games, the midweek games, has been spot on. McGinn misses the young boys game, comes back, big performance against Wolves. Tillemans rests against Brighton, comes back, big performance here. They've got the management and minutes spot on as well.
Yeah, Watkins obviously missed the Wolves game as well, didn't he? And then scores 2 against Brighton. Even the use of Marlon, I'm sure he hates being a substitute, but just always makes an impact off the bench. I can see in some ways actually why Emery doesn't start him now, because he does always do well off the bench and plays a part. He could have had a goal definitely at the end of that second half. But we just look so well coached as well at the moment. Maybe we didn't at the start of the season, but sometimes I watch a team and think, oh, this was definitely in years gone by. I sit at Villa Park and watch teams and think, why does everyone pass the ball better than Villa? This was before Emery. I was like, why do other teams look so well coached? I think other teams must watch us now and think they're one of the best coach sides in the league, and the manager's an absolute genius and a miracle worker. Did you speak to? I think you've already mentioned you spoke to Emery after the game. I know he won't say it, but there will be like an extra spice to this win for him because it's Arsenal.
Yeah, definitely. He won't say it, but other people will say it for him. It always adds something. Whenever he faces a Guardiola, or in Europe, or his old clubs, plural, there's something that brings something different out in him. He obviously always works hard, plans meticulously. He'll be in his office, watching games on the treadmill, on the bike, on the rowing machine. But there's something else that brings something out on him. It's a different feeling. He's fervent. He's intense. And beating Arsenal, the team, he felt blindsided by in terms of his sacking all those years ago, shows. And like I say, this is the best managerial performance of the season from Premier League manager, because others have spent more money. They've got, match changing game. Don't get me wrong, Villa have got an unbelievable squad, but they've got fresher, different types of options. They've got wingers for starters. They've got different variations. Now Villa have got those, but Emery's fulfilling their potential, maximising their potential more than any other manager's doing with their squad. So I've talked about Emery repeatedly, the piece on Sunday mornings about him as well. I can't quite put into words. I've always said, and I stand by, finishing the top 6, top 7 would be a great achievement this season. The fact that they are genuinely Champions League contenders, I can't quite believe it, but I shouldn't really be surprised at what Villa continues to do.
I keep saying it, this feels now very much like the 23-24 season.
It's on. The Champions League's on.
Eerily similar, isn't it? I think even just this last week of having those 2 massive games and winning them both. I mean, the fact that we started better in that season as well, like the last 13 from 15. It's just 6 in a row. Like these numbers, they're difficult to do in the Premier League. Whoever you are,
8 wins out of 9.
It's mad. These runs, this shouldn't be happening. Like this actually shouldn't be happening. Like I don't know how he's doing it.
Well, you ask him, and he says at the start of the season we were poor. Now we're very good, rather matter of factly. But again, this comes down to opportunities and seeking when's the best time to rebuild. So we all looked at Emery after he said against Sunderland and Everton, they were really good points. He said I was really happy with those points. I know he called his players lazy at Sunderland, but on reflection of that day after his press conference, I remember it. He said, actually, that's a really good point. And we're all like, come on, like you've not won a game yet, mate. You barely scored a goal. But it's because he knew they were weak at that point in the season. The summer obviously had taken a lot out of them. And he said, if we can just get some points while we're not playing well, if we can build this resilience, which it's been a buzzword of him in recent times, then we can get back onto our feet like a giant, and then we can start amassing, like a juggernaut, start amassing our strength again. And that's what they've done. I think even he admitted in his presser afterwards, he didn't quite see this turnaround. But once you get on a roll with him, once you beat Fulham, beat Burnley at home, you have the Europa League where you can get minutes into your fringe players, get confidence into their players. Everything starts to build from that. And now you've got to the point where you play in Arsenal and you're confident going into the game that you can win. But this is a team that's won more games than any other team in Europe in the last 3 years. So really, unless your name's Crystal Palace, no team comes to Villa Park and wins.
No. I was thinking as well, like the players the bulk of the squad. If you think back to last season, right, when we were in the Champions League, in the second half, we had some second half of the season. Sorry, we had some star names like Asensio and Rashford. We weren't seen as like being the underdog. I don't think at that point, because we were a team that's operating at the highest level. The season we finished fourth, and now I think we are seen as the underdog again. Well, we are the underdog given everything that happened in the summer. But I actually think that suits a lot of our players. I think like the likes of McGinn, and he'll be drilling that into everyone around him, Matty Cash. I think it suits them being the underdog. I actually think they quite like it and thrive. I feel like we are at the moment.
Yeah.
And we are in a real rhythm now. There's no doubt in that.
Yeah, these type of games suit Villa, right? Because they get Emery, who brings the best out of himself tactically. He always finds a way of making the strongest teams look weak at
Emery's
certain
better
points.
as an underdog as well.
Yeah, but I agree. But what should be overlooked is that Villa's midfield, that midfield that started that game, maybe is the second best, or first, along with Arsenal, as the top midfielders in the league in terms of what they've got. They've got just got brilliant balance. They've got the vision of Tillemans, the athleticism of Onana, the general performance of Kamara. They've got every ball base covered. So really, they are underdogs in certain games. But the longer this goes on, Dan, tonight, tomorrow, you will start to see that Villa will no longer be seen as this team that had a bad start to the season. They'll be seen as genuine, bona fide Champions League contenders now.
And I know what the scenes were like in the whole end after the game, because when that goal went in and at the end of the game, because I was obviously in it, and you can go and watch the match day content on the channel that's there, and you'll taste a little bit of that if you weren't at the game. Can I just ask, what's it like in the press box when there's a 95th minute? Well, I know obviously a few of the journos are Villa fans, and you yourself are now a huge bona fide Villa fan, Jacob. What happens in the press box when that Emery Buendia goal goes in?
Not happy. I was probably the only one that was really, obviously John Townley's a big Aston Villa fan, so he wouldn't mind too much. But I was the only one where my match idea wasn't going to change. A point or a victory, it would be similar. You could be I'm certainly going to be far more positive after a win, but the idea was going to stay the same. Whereas everyone else has got to write match reports on the whistle, player ratings, reports, briefings like the Arsenal colleague next to me had to do. The whole piece changes because, if you're an Arsenal perspective, getting a point at Villa Park's good, losing last minute is bad. So you basically see a lot of punches to the table, really quite angry because they're ready to click send to their editor that this piece is done, and they've now got 5 minutes to completely change the article. So you see that with any last minute winner, there's always chaos really, and there's punching of tables. There's the laptop is getting tapped away furiously. So I was just happy to sit back and just take it all in while others echoed their fury.
Yeah, and I'm talking waxing lyrical about Unai Emery as a coach and a tactician, but he's subs recently. He's got the Midas touch with bringing players off the bench and the way that they impact games. And I was a little bit surprised actually that it was Sancho that came on rather than Buendia at the time. That surprised me. And I think maybe when I haven't have had those two defensive injuries, maybe Buendia doesn't come on the pitch. But as it happens at the moment, when you're doing well, luck seems to be on your side, and it's him that scores the winner. In and amongst all that chaos, and Buendia was very much part of that chaos with some of his motions in that scramble in the box. That's a very, very smart and composed finish, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the Athletic actually did a piece in the week about every manager's substitutions of time with them, and Emery's is interesting because he's always typically made substitutes quite early, and obviously with the 5-sub rule, more managers are more proactive, but not often you see with Ruben Amorim, he consistently makes a team weaker. You look at Emery, you talk about Marlon always scoring off the bench, but Buendia has done it a lot. Ross Barkley as well, right? These guys make match changing, defining.
Even like Maatsen and Marlon against Leeds at half time, that was like an inspirational substitution, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's actually a really good stat for you there. This for Emery's 116 games, Villa substitutes have scored 32 times now.
Really?
So that's and I would love to know how many this have resulted in extra points as well. So
there you go. There's your next article.
That might be the next article. But I was right when I saw Sancho coming on. I thought, oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the intensity.
I was not
after his Wolves impact. I thought, oh no, this might not be good. But he was good, very good again. Buendia as well, this guy, the Renaissance man. What a guy. The guy that people thought was probably done. Villa even thought he was done. They were offering, like I keep saying, they were offering him on deadline day. Who wants him? I'm sure someone wish they took him now, and I'm sure there'll be talks of a new contract soon as well. So he's doing very well, and the timings of the subs, how proactive he is, how the subs are ready, all lends itself into the mentality this Villa environment has created.
I actually thought Sancho was decent when he came on as well. He was involved in the goal with his header across. Someone in the comments on one of my other videos pointed out to Rodgers on the right, saying that his delivery from the right is really, really strong.
Yeah,
Like, again, didn't get an assist today. I've completely forgotten who put the cross in for Cash's goal. All of a sudden, it wasn't Rodgers, was it?
Powell.
Powell. I tell you what, Powell's been getting forward and getting involved in the build up to goals recently, hasn't he? But Rodgers, he didn't get an assist today or a goal. But I thought his impact in the second half when he moved to the right-hand side in particular, like, very, very good. He's a high-level footballer as well. Like, his numbers in terms of assists in 2025 are incredible.
He was brilliant in the last Arsenal home game, and Arteta singled a lot of praise then. I probably think this is his best overall performance this season. I know he's had really good moments in games, but he has been at times when even has a good game, he's loose in possession, loose the ball quite a bit, makes silly errors. This one, he was so on it. He carried the ball. He did a real proper job for the team. Left wing, right wing, acting like a striker sometimes. Did his defensive work. There's times where he was blowing so hard. Got back, didn't slack it off. All round, that was a really mature performance. And this guy, he's vying for the arguably most competitive spot in world football, in the England number 10 spot, and for the 2026 World Cup. He's going to be an unbelievable footballer. He is now, but he's going to go on to huge things. Let's see if he's here after this season. I don't know. But
if we get in the Champions League, you start to kind of not have to worry about that stuff as much, I'm sure.
Yeah, it depends. It depends, doesn't it, on certain things. But
don't you try and come on here and put a dampener in it?
I'm not. But what I'm saying is that every club in Europe will be looking at Morgan Rodgers.
If he has a good World Cup as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason, because he does what he did today. He's 23 years old, but the maturity of his performance was incredible.
Did you see any players mingling around at the end of the game? Have any chats with any players? Any sneaky Tanswell chats?
No, I did not.
Come on, Tanswell.
I had to do my piece, and I had to come back because my car is broken. So I had the AA man waiting at the door keenly. So I had to get the Uber home quickly. But no sneaky chats or any news today. But what I will say, if you want some news, Gesson's injury doesn't seem to be too serious. So maybe he'll feature before he goes away with the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah, I've got to admit, when I saw the team today, I didn't even notice he wasn't on the bench. In all honesty, I did say that Hemmings was on there, and my assumption now is just that anyone but Elliot goes on the bench. But I didn't actually notice. I was like, obviously, I remember sitting there at one point thinking, I'm surprised he hasn't brought Gasson on. And then my lead told me next to me, he's not on the bench, mate. So yeah, I did come a cropper with that a little bit. Yeah. What a day, Jacob. I don't think there's anything else really left for us to say unless you have anything to talk about. There's been two other pieces of content on this channel as well.
It's just incredible. I'm again, without self-indulgence, I'm just so lucky to be able to cover a club on my own that is so big, but also so successful now, and how everyone seems to be so happy. It makes a difference. Trust me, when things are going bad at a club, it makes your job hard. So yeah, I'm so lucky to be watching it, and in awe of Emery. I always try and be balanced, and I've been balanced after wins, but I've felt like they've not been great. I've got no words of negative to room for improvement. That was exceptional, and yeah, what a weekend we're going to have, Dan.
Yeah, and you just quickly before we talk about our personal life, John McGinn posted on social media after the game talking about 9 points in a week, because we talk about the Brighton game, what that must have taken out of them, and then obviously winning this game at the weekend against Arsenal. But if you throw the Wolves game into the week as well, like 9 points from that week, and 3 wins in completely different ways, which for me is the mark and the measure of a really good football team.
Yeah, it's in my piece on. Well, this coming out Sunday morning, so this morning, in terms of the Wolves game, there was criticism because they weren't very, or they didn't look very good. But I was having chats with people at the club, and they were like, actually, people are understating this, because you'll look back at the end of the season and think that was a big win because Villa had half a training session that before the game between young boys. It was basically a walkthrough, no intensity. Then they had a 3-hour analysis footage, and they had to play a game where all the metrics there, even though Wolves are absolutely rubbish technically, physically under Rob Edwards, they were going to test and they were going to run and they were aggressive. And that took a lot out of those Villa players. So to get the job done was huge for them, really, to then attack these next 2 games, which were going to be more difficult. 9 points in 3 games. The points tally Villa are on. Wow, they can carry this on for even a couple more weeks. They're well in this.
I'll whisper it quietly. Obviously, they've got a European game on Thursday, but the next 2 Premier League games, West Ham away and Manchester United at home. I mean, I hate playing Manchester United. No doubt that week I'll get all kinds of fear and dread, whatever they're doing, whether they're winning or losing. It's a horrible game for Villa. Surely this season, surely right now, if the form continues, surely we beat them as well. Come on.
Yes, should do, but West Ham's just a hollow place, really, and it's just feels like it's just flat, isn't it? And the team that visits to Cup sometimes gets dragged down to the flatness, and Villa have been guilty of that. I know Duran scored 2 last year, but they kind of tailed off after a good start, and then that was it 1-1 draw Zaniolo the year before.
Great finish from Zaniolo.
Yeah, that was a bit of a slugfest as well. So
yeah, he's a horrible player.
It's not great, but this Villa team can beat anyone, so they need to just back this up, really. And United,
come on, man! I'm sick of it. Yeah, I'm sick of it.
Surely it's time now, right?
Yeah, I was talking to a Manchester United fan when I was working on something with someone on Thursday about that 0-0 draw last season. Oh, what a horrible game of football.
Oh my God. When Ten Hag was literally on his knees, wasn't he? Johnny Evans man of the match.
God, Philly Jean running down the wing. Jesus, what a time! What a time to be alive. But you know what? I said this on my own as well. It's important to say, we're loving it at the moment. We're buzzing. Everything's absolutely brilliant. At some point, we will lose a game, and I think when we do, people have got to be measured and look back and just realise what they've done over the last few months, and almost just like shrug your shoulders at it. It doesn't matter, because at some point we will lose. There's no point in it being the end of the world, because what they've been doing has been absolutely out of this world crazy.
Yeah, they're overachieving without a doubt. They've got a great squad, but like I say, they're maximising their talents, elasticating their abilities, like I said last week, and they will lose games. But this team, unless it's the first 6 games of the season and are huge mitigation factors, this team bounces back. They bounce back all the time. This is what they do under Emery. So they'll lose a game, but I'm sure they'll win the next 2 after that.
Yeah. Anything we should look out for from Jacob Tanswell this week on the Athletic?
I've booked my annual leave with you, Dan.
Oh, so, you did you did send me a rota, didn't you?
I did send you a rota.
There's a few fixtures missing in that rota. I did point it out to you. Didn't I? A few things not wrote down in that December.
The fixtures are just a given.
Okay.
But there's a few things. Obviously, big Christmas read on Emery's power structure, and so this has been going on for 3-4 months. So I'm glad this would go out. Probably Boxing Day, I think. Looking forward to that. That's still being worked on. Esri Konsa next week. Other things, I believe, in the offing next week. I don't actually know. I've not spoken to managers for a few weeks, so I don't know the plan, but that should be it. And probably a January transfer window read, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Oh yeah, sure. We'll have to do a podcast about that, Jacob. When we absolutely loves transfer podcasts, the Jacob Tanswell. So I'll be sure to jump on for one of those. Right, we're recording at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. Jake has been writing all day, I suspect. I've been doing a couple of other shows as well. So we're finally going to call it a day. But what a day it was as Aston Villa beat Arsenal 2-1 at Villa Park. Jacob, thank you ever so much for joining me. An absolute pleasure, as always, to converse with you. And thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring the show as well. Don't forget, if this wasn't enough for you, and this is the first piece of Arsenal content that you've taken in on the channel, there's 2 other shows as well. My instant match reaction that I did when I got home from the game, which is never as measured as when I'm talking to Jacob. So go back and listen to that if you would like. And also documented the day, a match day experience video is on the channel as well, where my wife filled in for my dad, who wasn't at the game this weekend.
Choir practice, right?
Can you believe? Well, you know what? He didn't even go to choir, he wasn't very well.
Oh.
So he ended up not doing anything, the poor man. But he
All
did
right.
watch Villa, and he was absolutely
Good.
elated with
Good.
the 3 points. So get well soon, Dad. I'm sure you'll be fighting fit and back at Villa Park for our annual defeat to Manchester United in a few weeks. Right, if you've listened to this on Apple or Spotify, 5 stars and reviews and comments, please. If you can, that would be absolutely great. Don't forget to check out NordVPN, nordvpn.com/1874. There'll be plenty more content coming through the week. Keep an eye on our social so you know when that content is out. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a brilliant Sunday. Jacob, I will see you on Sunday for quiz night. I'll be on Jacob's car's packed into on Jacob's taxi at certain points tomorrow evening as well to make up for all the podcasts that he comes on and does. So yeah, Jacob's getting his own back on me. But yeah, have a great weekend. Enjoy the highlights packages. Watch as many as you can. Enjoy these times. A great time to be a Villa fan. It's an up the Villa from me and an up the Villa from Jacob Tanswell.
Up the Villa.